Hello and welcome to the Free Cheese episode 563. I'm your Joe Dix, joined by Matt Sellner.
Hello.
The Free Cheese is a weekly video game podcast about video games brought to you once a week by thefreecheese.com. It's Batmania. The summer of 1989 is upon us yet again, Matt, as we step into Gotham City for Batman, the video game. That's right. It's the 35th anniversary of the release of Batman, the movie. And to celebrate, we're playing Batman, the video game for the Nintendo Entertainment System. More on that in a bit. And we'll, of course, review and rank the game. But, Matt, who's your favorite Batman?
Oh. See, I'm limited to just, well, dare I say, no, because you don't see enough Bruce Wayne. Right, cop out if I say, Christian Bale's.
No. I don't think so. Why would it be a cop-out? There's nothing wrong with
because that's the trilogy that everyone knows, you know. Not a sexy answer.
Hey, man, I think people still say Adam West. Some people say George Clooney. I don't know that there's a wrong answer these days. I think every Batman has its own merits. Myself included, like, I kind of jump around, you know, depending on the day. I do think Keaton is always, like, at my core, because I grew up with Batman Returns. We'll get into that a little bit later as we talk about the movie that inspired this video game. How about your favorite villain?
Danny DeVito's Penguin is pretty fucking iconic.
That's pretty inspired. I was just reading a comic, which we'll get into that later. But they didn't draw Danny DeVito's Penguin, but they drew someone who looked like Danny DeVito as Frank in the background. I feel like it was meant to be an Easter egg because this comic had some other Easter eggs. But yeah, it was an inspired choice. Now, do you think DeVito's Penguin above all portrayals of villains across movies, video games, anything you've interacted with?
No, I would say probably my favorite villain is a Joker, but probably the Arkham game Joker.
Yeah, it's a good Joker. It's a very
Mark
good
Hamill's Joker, but I mean, I know Mark Hamill's voiced him in tons of other projects.
Yeah. But truly iconic. Kevin Conroy, too. Like when I read Batman comics, I still hear his voice in my head. I think
that was almost my answer, was the Arkham Batman, but you don't see a lot of Bruce Wayne.
No.
Except the beginning of City, and that's it.
Yeah, and like, I think there's like one part that like flashes him visual, but yeah, no, you're right. The movies do a lot more of Bruce Wayne stuff, which the Nolan trilogy was the one that really fleshed out a lot of the Bruce Wayne side of Batman, for sure. I always liked Clayface. I still want them to do a live-action Clayface. I think that would be fun. I think you could do it in a couple of different ways that would be interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Batman's got a lot of weird, cool villains. I think Ventriloquist. There was a while where the Nolan movies, it was rumored, or at least I don't know if it was rumored or if it was just fan hype, but people wanted Robin Williams to play the ventriloquist, which I thought would have been an interesting role for him, and to have a live action. I didn't know how that was going to work in like that Nolan verse where you've got a dude with a little dummy walking around, but hey, they could have done something tragic. So Batman the video game for the Nintendo Entertainment System, developed by Sunsoft, published by Sunsoft, released on the Nintendo Entertainment System on December 22nd, 1989. Back of the box, he's totally new, totally tough, and he'll stop at nothing to make sure justice prevails. From the dark streets of Gotham City to the deepest corners of the criminal underworld comes the caped crusader as you've never seen him before. I think it's because he's purple. Incredibly strong, armed to the teeth, and ready to put his life on the line for the sake of all, on a search and destroy mission to end the Joker's reign of terror. He leaps, he flies, he dodges enemy fire, and delivers it right back with a vengeance. This is no kid stuff. This is as real as video gaming gets. If you liked what you saw in the movie, you're going to love what you see here. Because this time around, Batman is all business, and he won't let anything stand in his way. This is not kid stuff. I don't know how kids would have played. This is, and I don't mean that from subject matter. I mean this from difficulty, because the game pretty quickly is trying your skills, I think. Jumping into this one, what was your first impression of Batman the video game?
It seemed like a regular kind of like side-scrolling. I want to say platformer. Platformer is too, as a platform. I think Mario more than anything. But no, action. A beat 'em up platformer. It was interesting. The first level's not that tough, relative. So it's like, all right, I'm in it. And then, yeah, you start playing the game, and then you quickly realize you have to get good.
It's tough. It is, yeah. You really have to learn and practice. And for me, and I think I talked about this back on the Free Cheese episode 389, Punching Todd Howard. I think this was the game that kind of taught me patience with NES games. Because up to that point, most of the NES games I'd played and completed were always the sort of staple NES games, the ones that are out there. I think Castlevania was also one that, tried my patience, and through persistence and perseverance, I saw through to the end of those early Castlevania games on NES. But I guess it had been a while since I'd really subjected myself to the whims of an NES game. And back then, that was 2021, I'd played through this game. And it is. But I think if you keep with it, you just end up learning what the game wants of you. And it's easier to... I think there's still surprises in every stage, and we'll get into those. But I think you're more prepared the more you play it. The longer you spend with it, the more you end up kind of feeling comfortable with what the game's asking of you. How about the 1989 movie? What's your history with that?
I believe I seen bits and pieces of it up until probably I would say 2020, 2021. Me and Victoria watched all the Batman movies, and I could probably say that was confidently that's the first time I've seen that movie all the way through, from beginning to end in one seating.
Did you like it?
Yeah, I like it a lot. Yeah,
I had a similar history with it. When I was a kid, some of the earliest photos of me, outside of baby pictures, but when I'm a toddler, decked out in Batman stuff. I loved Batman since I don't even know how, before I can remember. But there's I don't know if it was my first birthday cake, but one of the early birthday cakes I had. No, it wasn't my first. I know that. But a few years in, I had Batman birthday cakes, Batman t-shirts, Batman this, Batman, everything Batman. That was definitely the thing for me. But I always had Batman Returns, which I had that VHS tape. That was the first movie I remember seeing. Obviously, by the time Batman Returns comes out, it's just a few months after that the animated series debuts, and I was watching that nonstop, at every opportunity. But I never saw Batman. I knew that Jack Nicholson was the Joker. I knew that the Joker was there. I knew there was another one, but I'd never watched this movie till I was 16. And they put out the DVD anthology where they had all four of the first four movies in there. It came out right when Batman Begins came out on DVD as well. And I remember picking that up, and I was like, all right, well, let's finally do it. And I watched it, and I didn't like it. And I just watched it again last week, and I still don't like it. I like it, but I don't love it. And I don't know. I don't know if it's because I saw it in a post-Dark Knight world, or if we've just had so many other interpretations. But I never found Jack Nicholson's Joker to be compelling. I don't know why people thought it was dark. I feel like there's moments, like if you, like, you know, they obviously couldn't show, or they didn't show, the same level of, like, darkness that the Joker has in later depictions. But I don't know. I also just felt like it was a little more campy than... I feel like DeVito's Penguin is more terrifying and horrifying than Jack Nicholson's Joker was.
I think a big reason for that is, I mean, old Jack, he's not Joker. Like, that's his alter ego. Like, Batman has an alter ego, which is not your average, like, not the Joker that we know today.
Yeah, that's fair. It's he, you know, and he spends a lot of time in that movie not like he's painting his face to look like he's still, you know, human and not descended into madness or whatever. But yeah, I like Keaton in it. I like a lot of the elements of it, but like in terms of just the villain, and I mean overall, I think it's fine. The plot moves forward the way it should. Like, it's an enjoyable movie to watch, but I'm never like drawn to just sit and watch it over and over again the way that I am with some of the other Batman movies, where I could watch them indefinitely. And I've struggled with this. I don't know if it's because I watched it so much later, or what, but it's a weird one. Granted, for the time, incredibly dark compared to people's most common familiarity, which was the 66 Adam West series, which was all the bam pow, holy something Batman, you know, all that stuff. So yeah, Batman Returns was always my what do you call it? I don't know. Go to, but like it was like my home base. Like it was just like that's my resting point. Like that's where I land with all this stuff, the beginning and the end of it. Granted, that one did not have, well, we'll see in the future potentially. I didn't love the video games for Batman Returns either. But this game I actually really had a good time with. And this one has almost nothing to do with the video or with the movie in terms of, you know, who's in it and who you fight, where you go. There's some general I think.
Well, stage 1-1 has theater in the background.
Yeah, it's true. You make your way through some of the places that make sense. It ends in the cathedral, as the movie does. But in terms of bosses, this game brings in Killer Moth, the Electrocutioner, and Firebug, who are not at all in the movie. Common enemies you run into, you find like KG Beast and the Enforcer and Deadshot, which a lot of the characters that they bring in are I don't know. Deadshot's a little more known these days, but a lot of these other ones, they were pretty I don't know, C-list or just uncommon things. Uncommon villains you'd find. They're the ones that Batman beats up on the way to go fight the Riddler or someone else, right? Like the beginning of the comic book issue, they're the ones that he's taking down in pursuit of someone else. They're not the big bads, so to speak, but they're all here, and in some cases they're just running through stages and hunting you down. So let's start with why did we pick this game for the list? It's one that kind of I nominated, but it's not one of my like official nominations for the season. When we did our big breakdown last year, but it was one I wanted to do this year simply because it is 35 years old, and it works out because, in case you missed it, last night we streamed us racing this game, kind of doing a speed run contest to see who could do that. If you did miss it, go check it out on thefreecheese.com. The archive is up there. But also, it was kind of perfect timing. The stream last night coincided with the actual 35th anniversary of the movie's release in theater. And of course, this episode this morning, or if you're listening to it right away, that is just the day after. We're right at that 35th anniversary point. So I thought it'd be neat to introduce that, especially since Batman's always been, I think, he's obviously always been my favorite superhero, but I think you as well, right?
Yeah.
You look back through, yeah. Looking at the game specifically, what do we have in Batman's utility belt? Because it's not the typical things.
Well, he's got his fist. He's got his fist. He's got a batarang. And then we'll have to go to the manual for the other ones. What was it? The spear gun
and the dirk.
The dirk, is that a thing? Like in any lore anywhere, or
not in Batman lore? I believe it is a real, weapon, but I don't know. Also, the batarangs in this game are not quite bat shaped the way that batarangs are.
Okay,
but in this game, the way they work, you have
there.
Yeah. No. So to pause the game, you actually hit select, but if you hit start, that's what shuffles through Batman's utility belt or his bat weapons. The first one in line is, like Matt pointed out, the batarang, which kind of it's a boomerang shaped. It's more of a boomerang, not a batarang. But when you throw it, it kind of goes forward, comes back to Batman. That costs you one. I don't even know what to call it. Yeah, one
pellet
ammo.
Pellet.
Yeah, sure. We'll go with pellet. Yeah. The next is the spear gun, which to me, I don't know. When I was playing it, I always kind of looked at it as like a rocket gun because it just kind of shoots these little. I don't know.
I think I used it 3 times.
They're thicker than bullets, but not quite. I don't know.
Slow.
Yeah. Those use. Is it 2?
2.
And they just kind of are a straight shot forward that do a good amount of damage. And then the dirk, that uses 3, but it also splits into 3. That it kind of ends up being like where the batarang kind of goes forward at Batman's like chest level and comes back at his feet level. The spear gun kind of goes out at chest level. The dirk goes out at chest level, but then splits so that it's kind of like top of his cowl down to his boots in terms of height, in what you're attacking. So you can kind of get some nice vertical attack going if you time it right, if you move the right way, all of that. That's the key attacks, but really punching is the main thing you want to do in this game. Punching through like movement, like really making sure you're slamming on that punch button as you're landing on an enemy, especially while you're platforming, if you have to kind of play that game. But how did you find combat as you got going, as things went? What was your go-to? Did you lean on punching? Did you lean on batarangs?
Probably batarangs more. By the time you start like really platforming, I think I used them more. It was definitely between batarangs and punching. I would say would be a good like 48%, maybe 48%, maybe split that evenly, and then 4 for the dirk. That was pretty much it.
Yeah, I rarely use those others unless it was like a very specific situation that I just like couldn't reach, or it just made more sense. The guys in the earlier stage, the enforcers with the rocket backpacks that have the machine guns that kind of attack on a diagonal, they really only show up when you're like at the very top of stage 1. Those guys, they were very easy just to take out from afar with the spear gun and then move on. But, yeah. Wall jumping is kind of the big thing, though. You kind of have to, you're forced into that pretty quickly. Did you feel like it was natural to step into that as you got going? In terms of like the history of wall jumps, did it feel okay to perform?
Yeah. I mean, with, the controller limitations, if you want to call them limitations, on NES, yeah, I think it was as natural as you're going to get.
Yeah. Yeah, I've definitely played certain games where, and I think I was probably like overdoing it sometimes here, where like you kind of just cling to the wall. It's very Ninja Gaiden-esque. Like I don't know. It's easy to kind of bounce off and clip to the next side. Where like some games like Super Metroid, it took me a while to like really like, you know, get my head around how to push, when to push, and what to push. This feels pretty easy, but this, like, the position you have to be in to line yourself up to jump to the next platform, especially when you're doing a lot of the, like, vertical scaling, that can be trying, I'll say. But it's definitely a key critical component to it. So stage-wise, there are 5 stages in the game. You work your way through Gotham into the chemical factory. You go underground into like the sewers. Then you end up in the manual, they call it the laboratory ruins. I don't know. I kind of got lost in that section. It didn't really feel like a laboratory to me, but I'll follow the logic, I suppose. And you end up in the cathedral, at the end, where you get to the bell tower to face off against the Joker at the end. Did you have a favorite stage? Did you have a stage you found to be the most challenging or the easiest?
5-1 is by far the most challenging stage.
5-1 sucks. 5-1 is the only one that there was one
that last
spot.
third of it. That last third of it, the climb.
Yeah.
The worst.
Here's the thing though. Just like everything else in this game, the more I did it, the better I got at it, but it wasn't until I learned the pattern of the wall shot thing.
Yes, a 1 is a pause. 1, 2, pause. Yeah, yep. I learned it too.
Now that I know that, I'm good. But for the longest time, I just kept like dying at that part. Like, and the good thing is like
we had
death
very similar
You,
experiences.
right? Yeah, death teaches you what to do and what to not do. And for most of the game, that's pretty accurate until that point. And like, that's not the first time you see those claw enemies. They pop up earlier on, plenty of stages, but I feel like they're always positioned in a way that's pretty easy to take out. I forget what they're called. I don't
While you're looking at up, yeah, a lot of like the range enemies. There's not a lot, like, because there's like the flamethrower. Well, in that path there was the flamethrowers, but I'm just talking in general too. A lot of those range enemies that have like a projectile, they're either like duckable or they don't quite reach you. And your batarang tends to have a different, like, or a farther trajectory than their reach. So early on, when you're seeing these enemies for the first time, you just kind of like find their edge, and then just kind of, I was throwing a batarang at them and kind of defeating them that way. But this is one, I mean, it's the very end of the game, but like this is one of the few times where you're being kind of tasked to, like, they're on a platform above you, and the only way to get to them is to wall jump and then get in their face, and you have to like, you have to time. It's tricky, and the first time through at least.
Thankfully, like when you're clinging to a wall, you can just sort of like stay there and slide down, but you still have to jump back up, and if you mistime those jumps, you take a hit that you can't afford. I didn't pay close enough attention to this now that I'm thinking about it, but I recently playing Castlevania on NES. That game does a terrible thing where the later stages you take greater damage. It's kind of like the inverse of what you're used to with games, where you get stronger by the end. In the original Castlevania, like the same enemies that used to hit you for 2 hit points in the first hit you for 6 in the last. It sucks. And I don't know if that was the case in this game. I didn't pay close enough attention. No, it's
not. It's the only one that hits you for more is the very last boss.
Yes, yeah.
But 5-1 for sure the hardest.
5-1 is the worst.
But
when you learn that pattern, it's not the worst.
Well, and then like the wall jump too. There's it's tough. Yeah. It's tough on an audio podcast, but like you're wall jumping, and like there is like a little move where like you just walk off the edge, you go back on the D-pad to where the edge is, and then you quickly jump, like wall jump off the same platform you just were. But like there's these, it's like gears. It's gears in the clock tower, pretty much. They're the obstacles that you're jumping around, and it becomes a level of Celeste, dare I say, with
very much
terrible stiff Batman jumping controls, which
that's the thing about a modern platformer like Celeste. Like, they at least spent a lot of time refining that so that, it's difficult, but if you get precise, it can happen. This, I mean, it's no different. It's still, you must be precise. But like
you can hit the jump, like you can hit that entire section not losing a heart. But my climbs, I was losing at least 2 on the way up, 2 gears alone, not alone, all the rest of the bullshit around.
Yeah, if that was the most frustrating part for me, was like, even after figuring out the claw timing and getting that right, then the next jump, I would jump too high. Because there's 2 jumps, and it's funny, the manual calls it the jump and the Batman jump, which is so stupid. But that's the difference between tapping A and holding A. So if you hold A, it's a much higher jump, but you have to like really be careful with that. Because there's a lot of stuff, like if Batman's just ear clips a gear, boom, that's damage. Which sometimes when that happens, you kind of use it to your advantage, you use the iframes, and you just barrel ahead. But it's not always the case. You don't always have that luxury. It's tough.
I will say this: as much as we talk about the difficulty, the checkpointing system could be far more punishing as it is in other games than it is here. Like, if you run out of... Really, the only thing you need lives for are the boss battles. If you lose lives, you just re-get your 3 again at the stage you lost. You don't even go back... Yeah. Like, you're at 5-2 and you lose your lives. You don't even go back to 5-1. You stay at 5-2. The only time you lose progress is if you lose all your lives on a boss.
Yep.
Then you go back to the stage before.
Yep.
That's it. And then even, like, the hardest... I don't know if I have a strategy. I don't know if I could replicate it. It feels like one of those 1 in 5 tries I could probably pull it off again. The Joker boss fight. The fight before him sucks. Almost equally as bad. But at least with that, you don't have to face him again. Was it Firebug, right? Firebug's the boss for 5-2? Yeah. I don't think they call it 5-2, but I kind of refer to it as 5-2 in my review and whatever. But even when you lose to the Joker, you go back to 5-1, you're like, oh shit, I have to face Firebug. You don't. You just skip the Firebug fight and go right to the Joker. So even like in that regard, it's kind of forgiven. Even though I would say 5-1 is a bitch to get through.
Yeah, and it's so defeating to have to just do that again and again.
Yeah, so like, I just wanted to throw it out there. Like, yes, this game's hard as nails, but it's also super forgiving. I mean, it's not that forgiving, but it puts you at the same stage pretty much.
But only if you're playing in a single session, because that's the one downside to this. There's no save system. There's no password system, right?
No, because I got screwed by that one time.
Yeah, you're kind of just like stuck. So you want to play through it as quickly as possible. But to Matt's point, like, die as much as you want. You just kind of pick up where you left off. It's not... There are certain games where, when you die, it's game over and it's back to the title screen and you are whatever. Or at best, most of these NES games, you die and you're back to the beginning of that area. Castlevania is very much like that. It'll keep you at the... if you're on the 3rd level, 3rd stage, and you game over, you go back to the beginning of that 3rd level, which... brutal.
Somewhere in there you asked about a favorite level.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like a good level design by any, like, or at least it stands out in any way, but like I really liked 4-1. I think the music, I think that's the one I'm thinking of, that has like the score picks up a little bit. There's that. There's like a splash of green that you haven't gotten in a while. And then I did enjoy walking by the Joker's face on his TVs at that one section.
That was fun. Yeah, that was a nice touch. I don't remember the music ever changing.
At least I thought it did.
You are probably not wrong. You ran through it more recently than I did. But that was why I made the joke in our notes outline, what was your favorite track in the game? Because I feel like there was only the one. But
No, I think there's more. There's more tracks. I think they might sound similar, but I was vibing with all of them. So,
Yeah. But there's definitely that like one through like punching that do like over and over again. Does the game feel like Batman to you?
No.
Yeah,
but
I agree with that.
I don't think it's a bad thing. It's just name the one time you saw Batman really wall jumping around Gotham City and not like gliding or whatever. But I think I go back to it, all right? Like you're throwing batarangs, you're using a utility belt. Stupid fucking thing.
You getting attacked?
No, it's my homework for next week is going off.
Oh.
Oh, it's that. No. No, the utility belt, you're using everything in your utility belt. You're like it's batarangs, sure, a gun, a dirk, yeah, Batman's favorite weapon, the dirk, but like you're still punching enemies. I think it's just one of those things where like you're kind of used to gliding around Arkham with Batman from the the last few games that we've gotten from him. Like there's like no glide button. And that's it's whatever, but like a game that feels more like Batman is our favorite, Batman Forever, and that game fucking is terrible. So I'll take this any day of the week.
That one's not a great not a great time. I think for me the one thing that like stands out, and it's funny because Sunsoft made this game on multiple platforms and every single one is completely different. Like if you were a kid and you had an NES and your friend had a TurboGrafx 16 and a different friend had a Genesis and you were all buying the new Batman game, you all had 3 entirely different experiences, which is not uncommon, but it was incredibly weird that it's the same developer who made 3 completely different games. So the Genesis game has a grappling hook. The TurboGrafx 16 is like a top-down bomb defusal game that makes no sense. It's like a weird, like, I don't know. But the Genesis game, you have a grappling hook. It's a more full height sprite. Because the sprite in this game, it's weird for Batman, but I actually love it a lot. The purple, which is so bizarre. I don't know. But yeah, his height is a little more... He's more shrunken than what you'd expect out of Batman, but then the villains all kind of compensate for it. But yeah, the Genesis game, totally different. I still I'm with you. Like, it doesn't feel entirely like Batman. Like, you could have swapped any character in here and it was there. I do think that they did a great job atmospherically, like, with the level design. Even the levels that seem weird for Batman, they all still feel like they fit in the Batman world. I really, really like the way the game looks overall, and sounds too. I feel like it puts you in the world of Gotham, and sort of just the world of Batman. How about levels specifically? Do you have a favorite one, like in the way it looks or the way it's designed?
Nothing. They all have like those difficult platforming sections, and I struggle to like remember like which one was where exactly. I know like it was one of those things where I feel like the game, despite like kind of jumping at you difficulty wise, it got harder as the game went along. Like I'm coming back around, I promise. But like 3-1, like immediately when dude, I forget the name of the enemy, but the jumping dude.
Oh, I hate those. Yeah.
3-1, you walk into that, you're like, oh shit, here we go.
Yes.
So like, I know like there's some tricky platform in like the second level. I know they call them stages, but they're like stage 2. Like I feel like it's always the second number is a stage and the first number is a level. But anyway, I feel like stage 2, despite having some difficult stuff, like it just naturally gets worse and worse going to 3 and 4. So, like, I don't know. I can't think of a necessarily like a favorite level design. They just kind of stack and evolutionize off of one another.
That makes sense. The manual calls them jaders. I never would have gotten that, but yeah.
Great.
Yeah, they suck. You're right. Those are by far my least favorite. And for me, there's a couple levels where, like, I think it's the underground level, like not the underground part where those fellas show up and jump on you, but the part where it's more like rocks and there's like the tanks and stuff underneath. I feel like that and some of the others kind of use the same browns and oranges. So the levels, even though the construction of them was different, the material, they still kind of felt samey. For me, I was much more of a fan of like the more blue colors, because those ended up having some more subtle greens in the backgrounds and things like that, like, I don't know, gave it this sort of factory look to it. I liked those a bit more.
I think it's stage 4-2 or 4-3. It's I guess the exit of the laboratory, which would lead to the that weird, like, we're talking about bosses, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Or at least that one weird double block boss fight. But I liked when you walked in, you immediately saw the exit, and it's across this huge gap. And I don't know about you, but it took about 30 seconds to see if I could cleverly wall jump my way and just skip the entire stage.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
That sucked. I hated that part immensely, because it's a nightmare to get all the way around that. And then, yeah. There was one part, the one run I did on that one where I had finally made it around for the first time, and I had literally one hit left. And I was so careful all the way across to get to that part, and I got within sight of it. And there was something that I just, like, it's that classic, like, getting too greedy kind of moment where I saw the exit and I was like, I got this. I'm going right to it.
I think it's one of those things that drops and follows you right at the end.
I thought I could out jump it and I couldn't. It was a bad time. Let's talk bosses. So I mentioned it before, like just kind of in passing, the villains that come through. But in order, it's Killer Moth, and then you actually fight a machine in 3 stages.
What a
then you
weird
fight the Electrocutioner. Yeah. You fight the Dual Container Alarm is what they call it, but that's the one where it's just like 2 boxes moving around and shooting you. And then Firebug you fight just before the Joker. Killer Moth. Best boss fight?
Yeah. I don't know. You can kind of cheese that. That's one of those ones you can cheese.
100% cheese that. Once you figure out where to stand,
yeah.
You can avoid all of his hits. And as he, flies down on you, you just spam him with batarangs, and
you're talking like 5 steps from the edge, right? Like that's the spot.
There's a spot in the background. I'd have to pull up the screenshot of it. I'm better. Like,
oh, you have a marker. Okay.
Yeah, there's literally a line on the screen. In the background element. It's so for listeners playing along at home. If you can kind of align, there's a green pillar. You can kind of stand there. There's like a staircase right behind the playing field where Batman stands. And if you stand, there's like these little gray blocks in the front, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blocks. The black lines that separate those. If you stand at the first black line on either side, you'll avoid Killer Moth's like throwing attack or whatever. That became key, but I never quite figured out. I think because I've played that Killer Moth fight so many times at this point through the years. Because this is a game too where, like, yeah, we're playing it for this podcast, and I played it a few years ago just on a whim. But it's also become one that I just like go back to and run through because it's just fun. It feels good. I like the feeling of running and punching and, kind of like building the run, which is what gave me the idea for us this season, not only to play it, but to do the stream where we did the race with it, right? Because it was just like, it's a fun game to learn and like put into practice, I think. So yeah, Killer Moth, but I never quite got that good with any of the, like I still struggle with the second stage, the machine intelligence as it's called in the manual. I think I actually this time around I did figure out a good run for that in terms of like where to stand and yeah, but what was your approach with machine intelligence?
Punch.
No weapons, huh?
I played that boss fight enough. I got to the point where I knew where to stand and I could punch and be fine.
Yeah. It's the second part, the cannon, that always screws me up in the top left with punching. But you're right. If you get up there in the right way, you can avoid the vertical shots and then swing back around to take out the nerve center, as it's called. Electrocutioner.
That's the one I think on I'll replay this. I'm not confident.
I agree. Yeah, because I always approach him like he's as easy as Killer Moth and has the same pattern as Killer Moth, and I think it might just be because you have that kind of like departure from a human villain with stage 2, and then you're back to that here, so you're like, okay, I know what to do here, and I understand.
That's one of those ones where I hope I just have 60 to 90 batarangs, and by the end of that fight, I might have 5 or 0.
Yeah. Just blast away. The dual container alarm is kind of easy, but this is the first one that really requires wall jumping as a mechanic. I guess it doesn't if you want to just take hits, but you kind of can't take that many hits.
You can't take hits. You can't take hits. I tried to take it and out DPS them. You can't.
Yeah.
This is another one. I think I know my cheese strategy. I don't feel like none of these feel like strategies. Feel like I just figured out a loophole and I just explained the hell out of it. Yeah, I don't know when they shoot and when they don't shoot. It seems seemingly random.
Yeah, there's no. I couldn't find a counter or a timer. I deliberately did not watch any speedruns in the lead up to us speedrunning it because I didn't want to give myself any unfair advantage. But I'm curious now to go back to it and watch to see. I didn't look to see it's being run at GDQ this year.
Oh, yeah.
But I know it's been run before. I've definitely watched a speed run of it before in the past, but I don't remember any of the things. But I'm curious to see, like, what's the approach properly for these. So, yeah, we'll see. And then, yeah, you talked before, you brought up Firebug with Joker. Firebug sucks. But you can start to predict his fireball that he shoots out. It's the zoom in punch that he does that makes it difficult to get past him.
I'm confident I could beat him in one try again.
Interesting.
It's called Stand in a Corner.
That corner, he can't get you?
You have to be good with batarangs. There is specific. I die to him enough, and I will say after having to do the clock tower again to get back to him, you can bet your ass I put a save state in place.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, there's.
I was doing pretty good with save states, but like the dual container alarm had killed me enough, and that, like you said, the lead up to him is not fun. And then the clock tower, I know it's a cathedral, but it feels like a terrible clock tower level.
I'm clock tower is what I would call it, because the most frustrating level for me in Castlevania 1 is also the clock tower.
Isn't it just again? Isn't the clock tower like a terrible level anyway? Just like every Castlevania because of Medusa heads.
But it's funny. I booted up the Anniversary Collection on Xbox, and I was like, I'm gonna just replay Castlevania, and I was like, I feel like I played this before, and I probably have like a save state from, the thing. And the way the Anniversary Collection works, like they only give you one save state at a time. So once you boot it and whatever, so I loaded it just to see where it was, and it was right at the beginning of the clock tower. And I was like, oh, I see why I stopped playing this. I remember exactly, it's been 5 years or something since I've touched it, but I remembered like exactly why I killed it.
Yeah, but Firebug, there's an interesting. I figured out like if you time. This takes a lot. It took me a lot. This isn't like I figured out time for. I tried a few different things, but I found if you die, he goes back, he throws a fireball, and then he comes up. But if you it doesn't have to be perfect, but if you time your Batarang throw on the way down before you actually land or as you're landing, it'll hit him, and it'll actually do you'll get the good damage on him.
Yeah,
where it kind of keeps hitting him because the Batarang's in place almost. He'll back up again after it, and it's almost like he's repeating the cycle. And even if you mess up because the Batarang hit him, he still backs up, but instead of going all the way back, might go midway, throw a fireball, and then go all the way back. But once he goes all the way back, you're free to reset and wait for that throw, jump, throw, or he throws, you jump, as you're coming down, you throw, and then it cancels him out of doing his spam punch because he got hit, and then he backs up.
That makes a lot of sense.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if that is the exploit to use, because I don't know what in the hell else works in that arena.
No, that sounds, because
that fight is hard.
He's difficult. The Joker is difficult for different reasons, but he's got lightning that strikes, right? And with the lightning, and he's got the gun too.
And the gun is this first thing that hits for multiple. It hits for 3.
Yeah.
Of your life.
And it sucks because again, the gun, you're used to other gun enemies that you can just duck under the bullets. You can't duck beneath this. And the lightning comes down in a set of 4. Immediately you're thrown back to Killer Moth, and nope, you can't stay in the same position the way I could for Killer Moth. His lightning's always moving a little bit horizontally, so it's never in the same spot. You get screwed. What was your approach with that one? Batarang and avoid?
I did the Dark Souls and stayed in his face. There's a fuck up, I think, with an animation on his gun. If you're
clever.
Yeah, his gun's so long. If you're within the gun range, if you're within it, the gun sticks out from behind your body, the shot doesn't hit you.
Good to know.
Also, if you're standing in the right area of that, the lightning doesn't necessarily hit you. So if you kind of match his patterns, the only thing you have to look out for is him walking into you. But again, I'm willing to eat the 1 with him walking into you.
Or then the 3 from the bullet.
Then multiple 3s and getting hit by the lightning and then getting, walked into for 2. So it was I found this weird little spot. Let me punch him as much as possible and hope that between my punches and before he could walk me out of life. It's weird. I don't think I can replicate it every time, but now that I know what to look for, I feel confident walking into that room almost.
Not bad. So is it still 5-1 that you feel the least confident with?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that would be the one where I'm in it, just having completed it not too long ago before recording. I would feel confident going back to it, but I think within 8 hours, and I've walked away from it enough. I would probably lose the muscle memory, and especially because again. Yeah, save states, you can do whatever, but the regular playthrough, you have to get through everything else before 5-1 again.
Yeah, I remember the first time I played through this game and started to feel confident with it a few years back. It was the middle of that underground stage when you get to the tank part and you're working your way up and around. That was when things started to click for me, and I felt I got this, right? And then this time around, in the lead up to playing it, I remember I got to that level and I was on the phone with my brother, just chatting and whatever. And I was like, gonna play this while I talk to him, and then like just dying over and over again to the stupidest little parts there that like made no sense that I was dying at. As confident as you can be, there's parts where like it just disappears. Visually, how do you feel like this stacks up against some of the other NES games we've looked at on the list? So far, listeners, the 2 NES games we have ranked on the list are Sweet Home and The Guardian Legend. But how do you feel like it stacks to them, or just any other NES games generally?
I think that like the sprites and stuff look good. I don't hate Purple Batman. I actually kind of dig it.
Yeah, me too.
I think Purple Batman is better than Purple Jason, if I have to compare our 2 purple icons of pop culture. But
yeah, I agree.
Some of the levels start to feel samey. Like I just finished it not too long before recording, and like I struggle without screenshots to remember which one was like 3-1 versus 4-1, or because again you start to get like it's a lot of like underground like stuff all of a sudden. There's a variety. It's not like you're just looking at brown, dark brown, whatever. Like there's variety, but they start to kind of feel the same, and especially when it's just like the same like tough type of platforming and whatever. But like there's one where like there's water, and then you sub it out. There's like weird acid on the ground. All of a sudden, it's like the next stage. And that's the stuff that starts to feel similar. Like there's obviously you can be in the water versus the acid, but like at the end of the day, it's kind of it looks the same. Besides it being green.
Yeah, you're right. I agree with you. I really like the Purple Batman too. They did an action figure. I forget what year. It wasn't too long ago, I don't think. But they actually like, replicated the color. Huh?
2014, according to this website.
That makes sense, right? 25th anniversary at that point.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there it is, right there. To celebrate the 25th anniversary.
Yep. But yeah, such a silly, weird thing. Because I think they did the same thing with that Friday the 13th game. They put out the Purple Jason. But yeah, it's just a weird, dumb little treasure of Batman's history. Overall, did you like the game?
Yes, very much. Very much.
Do you feel more confident with NES games, or do you and do you feel more confident with speedrunning?
This is one of the. I mean, it's one of those games. So that the speedrunning stuff just comes from repetition and doing it over and over and looking for weird exploits. And then, like, by the end of it, like, again, because of the way the difficulty is and you dying, like, you pick up, maybe just the main patterns, but then you start thinking, like, it's like, try one. This is what happens in this game. And I think this happens in a lot of NES games, your first time through. You play the level for the first time, you probably die. The second time, you probably die at a different point. Third time, you get through it, and you're like, all right, I kind of know how to get through this. You probably have to go through it a fourth time for another reason, whether lives, continues, and then you get better at it. And then, like, by the fifth time, you start thinking outside the box, and that's when you start dying again because you're trying to figure out how to get through it quicker. And then from tries 6 forward, that's when you start combining what you know and the little tricks to try to get creative without dying, and how to do that as efficiently as possible. And that's where speedrunning comes from.
That's the art of...
Or some idiot finds an exploit, posts it online because it's funny, and then the speedrunning community finds it and then manipulates the hell out of it.
I mean, I know I've talked heavily about the original Castlevania this episode, but that's the one that I am by no means speedrunning at all. I'm not that good with it. But there are little things I picked up from that. And the one is on the second screen in Castlevania, there's a bat that flies horizontally. And he always flies in from the right side of the screen and its vertical position matches Simon's vertical position. And if you do it the right way and you time it, you're supposed to go down the stairs and then down underground to a lower screen, walk past the fishmen, and then come back up. But if you time it right, you can actually jump into the bat, take the hit, and the knockback damage throws you over the right side, so you can actually just skip that whole bottom part. I learned that, and now I do it every time, and it feels so cool to do. But by no means am I I saw that in a speed run, and I've been able to replicate it. But yeah, it's very rare to find those things on your own.
I mean, even in this game, there's there's one part where there's one of those tank guys, and then you're baited because there's these little step ups, little platforms. They're big enough for you to walk around, but there's not a lot of room, and there's three or four of these making steps. Well, the first one is one of those things on the ceiling that drops those tracking things that are fast as all hell, and then the second one has a tank, so you can't necessarily just jump to that one. So it's a jump to get to this first step regardless. So I was just all right, get there, land at the very edge, punch the tank, and then get the 2. But then I think, like I said, I think it was late 4, or maybe this is in 5-1, and that's what made me play so much. I just found out you can just skip the tank, just jump 1, then jump 3, and just keep moving. It was just a dumb discovery. I was oh my god, this makes it so much better. Just this one little dumb jump.
A few moments in this where if you just don't engage and just keep moving, you'll do better than actually stopping. This is also not this game, but the sequel to this game on NES is the first time I can remember where a property has received a sequel in a different medium. And the people at Sunsoft, the developers at Sunsoft, made Batman Return of the Joker for the NES, and it is a sequel to the movie. Are you interested in playing that at all?
Yeah. I don't know when, but this playing through this one, I don't know. I'm not gonna say I always thought this was bad, but I always feel I lumped this in with that Batman didn't have a good game until Arkham kind of mentality, and I don't know why I had that. I think maybe I just lumped Batman into there's terrible superhero games and they're all made by LJN, and dude, I just
licensed games are not. They were always tricky. There's always something wrong with them, right? Even this one, it's not perfect, and there's things that make it not good. And
probably not until a few years ago when you had played it. That's when I probably when I realized this not LJN, that's Sunsoft, and the little bit of footage that I've seen of it actually doesn't look like a bad game. So playing this, I was all right, well, this is actually better than what I was anticipating. And then I could do a sequel to this at some point.
What if I told you the sequel plays nothing like this though?
I absolutely expect that.
Yeah. It's a complete. I just played a bit of it the other day, leading up to this, and it's completely. It's a taller Batman. It's more gun based in a way, you're shooting things more projectiles. It's totally different vibe and feel. The other thing in closing, before we get ready and rank this thing, that I wanted to point out in terms of sequels to this the movie, DC Comics actually did do a sequel comic called Batman 89. They did another one called Superman 78 if you're more on that side of the fence and you want to see what could happen. But they basically said hey, what if we picked up where these movies left off? So Batman 89 picks up after Batman Returns, and you get to see they used all the same likenesses and everything. So they bring back Michelle Pfeiffer, they bring back Michael Keaton, they bring back, most importantly, Billy D. Williams as Harvey Dent, and you get to see his full transformation into Two-Face in the comics. They introduce Robin in a really cool way that makes sense for this world. And then now they're doing a sequel to that called Batman 89 Echoes, which has 3 issues out now. And they're getting into Harley Quinn and some of the stuff down that path. But it's really well done. It's been fun to read. And the most important thing is it's written by the original screenplay writer, Sam Hamm. So the same dude who wrote both of those first 2 movies is writing this comic series. It's an interesting, kind of peek into what could have been had the the movies continued the way they were supposed to before diverting to Forever and Robin, and then sitting on ice for 8 years while we waited for Christopher Nolan to save the day. Matt, we rank video games on this podcast, and this podcast is no different than the rest. Listener, if you want to follow along at home, you can do that at thefreecheese.com/thelist, along with all other 98 of the video games we've ranked so far. Where do we rank Batman the video game?
I'm going to toss out a number.
Ooh.
I'm going to toss one out. I don't know where you're going to feel about this, but we'll see. I want to sneak it into the top 20. Right above Max Payne and right underneath of Undertale.
I don't want to say anything. I just want to let that happen. Now I'm good with it. Can I make this the easiest ranking ever?
Sure. I mean, where were we? I mean, I'm happy with 20. Where we're just for listeners' sake. Where were you? Where was your head?
That's the thing. I hadn't. Like, I opened it up, and where we last left off, I had it kind of scrolled a little bit further down. So I'm like starting to look in some of these other ones. I'm like, I like it better than that. I like it better. I was starting to play that game, but I hadn't really landed anywhere yet. But
see, you broke me. What was that? Last week?
Yeah.
No, not last week. 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
You just kind of, yeah, you just want a number, and you're not going to look too far up or down the list. Because you're going to eventually find something you don't want it above, and you're going to also find something in the same cluster. So yeah, I'm throwing a dart at a number now, and I'm not, because like Parasite Eve, I think I like Parasite Eve better in this game, but I like this above some other stuff in that 20-ish area. So 20 it is.
I don't hate it. See, now you got me thinking. You had to throw Parasite Eve out there, and now I'm thinking.
Yeah, but this is, dude. Hold on, I clicked out of the list. I had to look at the schedule.
You were that confident with the placement.
No. I was looking at the schedule to see. Metal Gear. Let me remind you, Metal Gear Solid 2 is 41 on this list.
That was another one I saw where I saw that and I was like, well, this isn't better than MSG2, but the list is a mess.
It is. So we just embrace the madness.
I'm good with it, Joker. Let's do it. Batman the video game. Our new number 20. Congratulations to Sunsoft. You done did it again. Is that our first Sunsoft game on the list? I don't remember now.
I believe so. I believe so.
Yeah, it's a good video game. It's really good. I think especially to your point, right? When you think about how terrible some of the licensed games were from that era. And I'll also say, if you're at all intrigued, go check out the TurboGrafx and Genesis versions of this game, because they are completely different. The TurboGrafx game is just a mess, dude. It's a weird thing. And playing this one, it just feels like a tight, solid platformer action game. I really like it. There's something about this that's just special. And the guys you fight in the first level look like Todd Howard. And in case you didn't already want to punch Todd Howard, you can, do that now. Shout out to Todd Howard. And Maryland's very own. Is he from here?
I don't know, is he? I mean, I know Bethesda obviously is in, Bethesda, Maryland.
We're going to find out. It feels like he was born in California. There you go. Born in Pennsylvania. Went to school in Pennsylvania. And then he just liked what Bethesda... That's right. His origin story is that he just kind of wandered into the offices and said, give me a job. And they said, okay, we'll give you a job. Still. So, not Maryland's very own. But you can punch a Pennsylvania man in Batman the video game. And that's the selling point that I hope to instill for everyone. No, that's not it at all. It's the wall jumping, man. That wall jumping feels too good. Solid stuff. This is the one. I'll my closing thought. This is the one of those things, like, as Digital Eclipse and some of these other folks have started to like bring back some of those old things when they started doing the Disney Afternoon collection, and there's all these little like licensing deals to bring these things back. I'm like, can we do the Sunsoft Batman? Can we get that one back? Like, I would buy whatever stupid limited run games collector's edition thing. I'll take it. I'll do that. It's the one I'd break for, because this game rules. And it's our new number 20. I'm happy for it. Next week, listeners, come back as we talk about monsters of the digital variety. Until then, thank you, Matt. Thank you, listener, for listening. We'll see you next week. Bye.